Hello again, everybody, and welcome into the Shelby County High School Football Show alongside Andrew Simonson. I am Alec Etheridge, and we're glad to have you on board for another edition of the show. And it's the midway point of the 2024 high school football season. Another big week ahead, but Andrew, we get a break from region play, so it feels like a good time to reflect on what we've seen so far this season. So as we look back at the first half of the year, we've had a couple of region games that each team's played now, and now we hit a non-region week of action. So to me, I want to know what stood out to you through those first few weeks of the season as we do hit the midway point and jump ahead to the second half.
I think I was seeing the teams that we thought were surprise teams coming up in non-region play just live up to those expectations throughout the start of region play. And of course, the two biggest ones I'm talking about are Shelby County and Chelsea. They have not been a flash in the pan whatsoever, have continued to roll, have continued to win, and both sitting this week undefeated with really good chances of getting past the midway point of the season, still undefeated. They just both continue to impress me. And as we go on further through the show, I think you'll start seeing once again those reasons why.
Yeah, I agree with both of those. I think Chelsea has stood out in many different facets of the game with their physical rushing attack. I saw some improvements from Miller Bowman in the passing game last week, and their defense has played pretty consistently throughout the season as well. That Shelby County rushing attack, we saw Anthony Palmieri do it again last week on the ground with 400-plus yards rushing. They improved to 5-0, kind of the surprise of the season for us. And I think statewide, a lot of people are starting to take notice of what the Wildcats have been able to do as well. In addition to that, you got Spain Park still sitting undefeated off a thumping of Benjamin Russell. We're going to talk a little bit more about them on the show as well this week and what they've got ahead the rest of the way. Thompson on a win streak right now, a little testy last week against Vestavia Hills. We'll talk a little bit about that as well as they get geared up for what's going to be our game of the week, another game with Clay-Chalkville, as this has become a fun little rivalry battle here between 6A and 7A powerhouses in the Thompson Warriors and Clay-Chalkville Cougars. Going to be a great game here in our game of the week. Spain Park in another big game this week as well at James Clemens. That's going to be a fun one. Chelsea, boy, they've got some good opportunities the next 2 weeks. We're going to talk a little bit about that and their matchup with Paul Bryant this week as well. But total of 10 games, all of them going to be exciting. We've got a huge list of SCR Stars of the week with some big-time performances from last week that we're going to talk about at the end of the show as well. So plenty to get to here on the Shelby County High School Football Show with a lot of excitement and action in a non-region week. We're going to jump in. We're going to start with our game of the week right here at Thompson High School. Before we break down our game of the week between Thompson and Clay-Chalkville, I want to tell you about 3D Air Services, proud supporters of us right here on the Shelby County High School Football Show and proud supporters of the Thompson Warriors throughout the season. Since 2005, 3D Air Services has called Shelby County home. They're more than just your trusted HVAC company. They're your neighbors, friends, and supporters. Proud sponsors of the Thompson Warriors who believe in the power of teamwork, dedication, and community spirit, which are values they carry with them to every job that they do. 3D Air Services, your trusted neighbor, keeping Shelby County comfortable one business and home at a time. Give them a visit on their website, 3dairservices.com. Give Jay Carr and his certified team a call, 205-664-3501. They're going to take good care of you. We're heading into the fall season. Winter will be here before you know it. Get that HVAC system tuned up, whether it's the heater you need to get prepped up or whether it's trying to keep that air condition going a little bit longer through these hot 90-plus degree days in what's supposed to be fall now, but is not. Make sure to give them a call, 205-664-3501, 3dairservices.com. It's another year and another big battle between these two teams. If you've got the 6A number 3 Clay-Chalkville Cougars against the 7A number 3 Thompson Warriors. In the last couple of years, this has been an entertaining matchup, and last year's no different. A game that went down to the wire, 36-33 game. In that one, a little bit more of an offensive showing than I expect this year. Those two defenses last year were really, really good, and we saw a little bit of an offensive outburst in a back-and-forth game there. But this year, man, these defenses are playing well. You look at Clay and what they've done so far this season, giving up 3.5 points per game. Thompson, no different. What they did last week, and I'll talk about a little bit more here in just a minute, but what they did last week defensively, it won them the football game. It's the reason they've now won 4 in a row after that win against Vestavia Hills a week ago. And it was all defense. The offense still growing, I think, for the Warriors at this point in the season. But these two defenses coming into this matchup playing at the top of their game. And I'm excited to see that. Andrew, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on the expectation for this game and what excites you most about this big showdown between 6A and 7A powers.
I'm curious to see how each of these teams stack up against what's arguably going to be their best test of the season so far. Obviously, Thompson took that opening week loss to Grayson in another big test for them. But since then, they've been much improved, especially on the defensive front and getting the plays that they need to get these wins in this one. But Clay has not lost a step this season from last year's state championship season. I came into the season a little bit curious how they were going to adapt to life without Jalen Mbakwe, their do-it-all quarterback, defensive back, everything for them, and losing their head coach, Drew Gilmer, as well. But a huge props to Stuart Floyd for coming in and just keeping this train rolling for the Cougars. They're now scoring 44.3 points per game and allowing just 3.5 this year on a 4-0 start that has them up near the top in Class 6A as well. Now, granted, this team has had a much lighter schedule compared to the Warriors, facing Hueytown, Ramsey, Pell City, and Shades Valley. This is a team that's going to start getting those tests towards the end of the season, starting this week with Thompson, as well as a couple games against Oxford and Vestavia Hills as well. So I'm really looking forward to see just how these playmakers stack up against the really big Thompson defense, and then on the flip side as well, how this Warriors offense can overcome some of the challenges that Clay's defense is going to present them.
You talk about their schedule, what Clay's faced. Hueytown, probably the toughest team that they've played this year. Ramsey, I think, going to ultimately be a good team at the end of the year, but a 5A opponent nonetheless. Hueytown, they struggled offensively. They scored 28 points in that game against the best defense they've faced to this point, and Thompson's defense light years better than what Hueytown threw at them in that opener to start the season. So I do think that's going to be the key here. I think it's going to be a tight battle because both of these defenses are so good at what they do. But you just look at Thompson last week and what they did on that side of the ball. It won them the football game. Trailing 17-14 at half, get an Anquan Fagan's interception to kick off the second half. That leads to the go-ahead touchdown. And in a back-and-forth game, the defense determined at halftime they were going to win the football game, because after that, you get the strip and return of 95 yards from Fagan's as he pulls the fumble and goes to the house. You get another pick six from Micah Fleming. Jared Smith had a pick six in the first half. So 3 defensive scores, 4 turnovers that end up leading to important points in that game. The Thompson defense determined they were going to be what made the difference in that football game. So when you look at this, going up against another physical defense, you have to think with the offense, and the offense didn't have to do much. I do think in the second half last week, they were going to come out and put things together to be able to win that game. But they didn't have to do anything offensively because the defense took care of all the scoring, so they didn't get on the field a lot last week. This week, they're going to have to probably show those progressions, but if you're the defense, Andrew, going into this matchup, you almost have that same mentality that you had at halftime against Vestavia, which is, we got to go out and win this football game.
Absolutely. You just have to adapt and overcome in those situations. It's interesting that you point this out. Coach Freeman earlier this week quoting a post talking about second half improvements and about how important those actually are. And you look throughout this season, that's been the story of their year, is just making those adjustments at halftime, being able to come out, and especially on the defensive end, just really lock in and make a statement and pull away for that win. And I really do think that if they're going to walk away with this victory, it's going to have to come from that. Now, obviously, this team is going to want a full performance from across all 4 quarters. But if they're able to end the game as a stronger team, I really do think that these Warriors can come away with that win.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Last year, they weren't able to get off the field on third down and make the adjustments necessary to win that game. Now, they did make adjustments going into the second half that made that a very entertaining and close football game, and they had chances to win it, just like they had chances to win the opener this year against Grayson as well. So I think that's going to be a key focus, is coming in, starting strong, but then having those adjustments in the second half. But I ultimately think getting off the field on third down going to be extremely key. This offense I'm interested to see in person against a good defense, because last year's, what they were so successful at last year is that offensive front was just dominant, and they pushed Thompson around that entire game. That offensive front pushed Thompson's defensive front around last year. This year, that's the strength of Thompson defensively. Their secondary is really good too, but that front defensively is so good for Thompson, and I think that's where they're going to step up and really make a difference this year that they weren't able to make a year ago. You come in with a motivation to prove something, and that's going to be where they try to prove it. So ultimately, Andrew, do you think that defensive front, the way that Thompson's playing defense, is going to be enough to propel them to a win in this one?
I do. I do think that this will definitely be a battle, and one where they're going to have to show their true character and really be able to lock in with those adjustments. and with those big-time performances. But I think at the end of the day, they win the turnover battle, and they're able to capitalize from there.
And I ultimately think that's the case as well. I do think that Clay might be a slightly better team at this point in the season because we've seen a little bit more consistency on the offensive side. But with the opponents they've played, they've had a lot of opportunities offensively because of what their defense has been able to do as well. This is going to be the toughest defense they arguably face all year long. And I think that's what makes the difference. If Thompson had won the game last year, I may pick Clay in this one. But with Thompson coming in motivated, and especially with that defensive front not wanting to get embarrassed, I think that you're going to see them come out ready to make a statement. Sean DeFore is going to have that defense ready to roll. I think their physicality up front ultimately is what makes the difference. But if that offense can't find a rhythm to get going, Mike Dujon's kind of been carrying them lately. Some receivers are going to have to step up at some point in a big game. And with what they have left the rest of the way and some of their biggest region games still left on the schedule, they're going to have to step up in a hurry. And if you can do it against Clay, you can do it against anybody. So have a good offensive game plan in this game. Grow some confidence there. That's going to bode well down the road. But ultimately, I do think that defense, the difference maker in this one, I think Thompson edges out Clay in a tight physical defensive battle. Special season continued for the Chelsea Hornets this past Friday night as they take down Calera and get to 4-0 for the first time since 2015. And one of their best overall performances, I think, so far this season, especially on the offensive side of the football. A lot of different guys step up in that win as they take down Calera at home, get a region win, and improve to 4-0 overall in the season. So this is a team that seems to be clicking right now and growing confidence each and every week. And if you're a Chelsea player, if you're a coach, if you're a fan, you probably want to tune out for this part. But a really, really great opportunity for them the next 2 weeks against Paul Bryant and against Chilton County to go out and win 2 more games and get to 6-0. And then if you look ahead, which none of you should be doing except for us, but if you look ahead in a few weeks, they've got Spain Park, who I fully expect to be at 6-0 at that same point in time. We could have an undefeated battle for first place in the region between Spain Park and Chelsea that week, which would be unbelievable. Obviously, Chelsea's big thing right now is right up here. They've got to stay focused mentally and continue to grow their confidence. Coach Cassidy said after the game on Friday night that they were starting to realize that, yeah, we are a little bit better than people thought we were this year. And so as they grow that confidence, they're going to be an even more dangerous team. And so, Andrew, going into this game against Paul Bryant, to me, that's the big thing. This is a team that they're better than on paper. They've been better than throughout this season. Ultimately, to you, though, what's the key focus? What is something that could trip them up, one, but also if they continue to do well, they're going to be fine in this game?
I think it's the combination of just going on the road to Tuscaloosa, a little bit of a longer road trip for them, and then just not being focused. I mean, quite frankly, it's a non-region matchup against a team that's allowing 36.8 points per game and only scoring 9.8 and is sitting at 0-4 on the season, the exact opposite of your 4-0 record. So you look at that and you kind of think to yourselves, might be a little bit of an easier game, and it should be. This should be a game that Chelsea goes out, dominates, sets the tone early, and then cruises from there. But sometimes when a team finds that little bit of success that they don't really expect, it can trip them up a little bit and maybe lead to some things, some weird games that they maybe get a little bit closer or even lose that they maybe shouldn't. So it's all about coming out and just attacking it with the same amount of mentality that you've had. If your goal is to now be undefeated and go for that region championship, then these are the games that you need to win.
Yeah.
You need to come out here and just attack like you did last week on offense. Your biggest offensive day last week with 56 points, now up to 32.8 points per game, which is a phenomenal mark for them. And then you also now face an arguably worse offense than Calera. Calera, we know who they are by now. They're able to put up some points even against some really good defenses. Now you get an offense that's scoring less than 10 points per game. That should really set it up well for what should be an even more comfortable win from a week ago.
Yeah, so Chelsea prediction there. And to me, it's that exact point. You've got a team that they've got athletes. Like Clair, this is going to be a team that has athletes. They haven't shown it yet offensively, but they can have a game where they can put up some points. And so Chelsea, you look at the game against Pelham, you look at the game against Clair, the defense struggled a little bit. But overall, this is a physical and disciplined defense, and they've got to come out ready to set the tone and make a statement in this game. And I think if they do that, they're going to be able to pull away. So if the defense just gives the offense that time to really create some separation, this should be a game that Chelsea's able to walk away with. And you look at what Paul Bryant's done so far this season on the defensive side. They've given up 51 and 54 in their last 2 games. And Chelsea's coming off their best offensive performance of the season and continue to get better on that side of the ball each week. Chase Straciner, another big game last week, but they had other guys stepping up. And Miller Bowman is growing more and more confidence with his arm throwing the football as well. And he's got some guys stepping up at receiver out there. And they're asking more and more each week of these guys, and they're stepping up and doing more and more each week as well. So that only makes this team better as they move forward. I think you're going to see it all kind of come together offensively this week, build off of that big performance they had a week ago. But the defense is what the key is to me. Go in, lock down, make a statement, give your offense some time to pull away. Ultimately, I think that's what happens. Chelsea, much better team right now. It's just a matter of staying focused this week throughout practice. I think they do that. I think they get another win. I think they improve to 5-0, and they continue to roll during this special season. As we look ahead to this Spain Park James Clemens matchup, you're going to be hitting the road on Friday afternoon to head up to James Clemens as a Spain Park fan. Well, I got the place for you to stop, and that's right there on Highway 280 at Scooters Coffee, right there in Inverness, next to Home Depot and Chipotle, conveniently located to get you on your way out of town, get you the energy you need to cheer on the Jags this Friday night. So make sure you stop by there at Scooters Coffee. They've got those delicious fall flavors out right now. They've got the pumpkin spice latte. They've got the pumpkin chai latte. Get anything iced, hot, blended, whatever's going to float your boat. They're going to take care of you there. They've also got their new maple bourbon menu out. And combination-wise, that's one of my favorite flavors that you can test out. I want to go right after the show today to get my energy for the second half of today. But make sure you visit them right there at Scooters Coffee on Highway 280. They've got a Chelsea location as well. And that Inverness location, proud supporters of us on the show, proud supporters of Spain Park, Berry Middle School as well. They're getting into the local schools. Make sure you support them. Quick and easy access. Hit that drive-through. You're out in no time, and you've got exactly what you want with a coffee, with their omelet bites, with anything that's gonna get you right on game day or throughout the fall season. They're going to take care of you with their delicious food and their delicious beverages at Scooters Coffee on Highway 280. We continue the trend of exciting games this week, and we've got a battle of undefeated teams. Kind of a sneaky good game, as Andrew just said before we popped into this segment, between Spain Park and James Clemens as the Jaguars hit the road to take on the Jets in what should be an entertaining matchup when you look at what these two have done so far this season on paper. Both sitting at 4-0, obviously playing really well. Spain Park coming off of two really good wins in a row off of their bye week as they take down Helena 28-26. But what impressed me more, the team that I thought was going to compete for the region championship alongside them, last week they thumped Benjamin Russell 42-15 in that matchup, and every facet of the game played well. So a lot of confidence. They've obviously beaten Hoover for just the third time in school history as well. Second season ever that they've beaten Hoover earlier in the season. So this team's got a lot of confidence right now, kind of like we just talked about with Chelsea, though. It's all up here, and you're taking on a really good football team. And I know it's not a region game, and your goal ultimately right now is to win that region championship. But this is a Spain Park team that's looking to win a state championship. And if you're going to win a state championship, you win games like this. This is a James Clemens team, Andrew, that is a really good football team.
Yeah, absolutely. They're scoring 30.3 points per game and allowing just 16.5. So really solid defense backed up with a good offensive effort for them. However, this is going to be James Clemens' best test of the season. Yep. Got a couple of close wins over Gardendale and Bob Jones, and then their other wins are against Huntsville and Grissom. We kind of know what to expect from this 7A region that James Clemens plays in a little bit weaker. To be honest, they're a borderline top 10 team and a little bit of a shallow 7A this year. So this game will really show just exactly how good they are. And you go up against a Spain Park team that is playing lights out on both ends of the field. I expected the defense to step up in a big way in this one and set the tone against Benjamin Russell. And my goodness, did they do that. Yep. Allowing a high-powered Ben Russell offense to just 15 points and then following that up with another huge day in the passing game. I think that really sets the tone for the rest of region play. And like we talked about with Chelsea and like you alluded to earlier, it's all about keeping that focus, stacking wins and stacking results to really come out and be able to get those week after week even in a non-region game against a 7A opponent like this. But I trust Vikakis. I trust his coaching to be able to get his players focused, help them to maintain that 1 week at a time mentality, and really come out here and get this. So I think this one ends up a little bit similar to last week, where Spain Park sets the tone early and then builds out from there. With an offense that's now scoring 36.8 points per game, I'd be really hard-pressed to bet against this team, so I'm going with the Jags.
I think that's the key right there. The balance offensively that they have between Brock Bradley at the quarterback position. He's got weapons out wide that have really proven themselves throughout the season. Corey Barber Jr., who we're going to talk about at the end of the show, I'm sure in our SCR Stars of the Week segment. But he's got weapons, and then you throw in the combination of Dakari Shanks and CJ Calley, two guys that can not only run the football, but they can catch the football out of the backfield. Makes this offense really dynamic and balanced overall. And the defense has been a little inconsistent at times, but when they're on their game, they're a really good unit as well. But I do think that's the key in this one. It's a James Clemens team ultimately that can come up and beat you if you come out kind of flat. Like that Helena game a couple of weeks ago, Spain Park looked really, really good at times, and then there'd be other times where they just looked a little bit flat on both sides of the ball. They weren't able to get as much going offensively in that game. Defense was able to make some big-time plays when it mattered, but also looked susceptible at times. So if you're Spain Park, you've got to be focused all week at practice. You've got to be focused in that game and execute the game plan. Or James Clemens could be ready to pull off the upset and pick up that win. A 7A team, undefeated. I know it's that weaker region up north, but this is a game that could come back to bite you a little bit if you're not focused. So that's the big thing for me if you're Spain Park. But talent to talent, that offense and the balance they have, I think at the end of the day is the difference. They've proven week in and week out that they can make the game-changing plays when it matters in the second half to be able to win these football games, and they've done it each and every week of the season so far. I don't expect anything different this week. They've proven it. I think they're going to prove it again this week. I expect the Jags to walk away with the win. Before we jump in and talk about this Helena matchup against Oxford, I want to tell you about our friends at Consign Design, proud supporters here on the Shelby County High School football show of us and of our local teams, but really highlighting what you can get as a Helena fan right there at Consign Design, whether it's ahead of a high school football night, whether you're hitting the road and you want your best for game day attire. They've got men's, they've got women's, they've got children, and they've got jewelry. Anything you could need, Consign Design's going to help you out there. They've been voted Shelby Living's best consignment store 8 times. They're conveniently located right there in Alabaster at 72 Fulton Springs Road, near Publix, near the Walmart neighborhood market. So make sure you give them a visit. With more than 27 years of experience in the consignment industry, Consign Design owner and operator Wendy Davis knows a thing or two about friendly fashion, and she's going to make sure that you get taken care of. She can also get you set up with all your consignment needs as well. Give them a call, 205-664-7540, 205-664-7540, or visit their website, consigned.design. Again, that's consigned.design. They're going to take great care of you there at Consigned Design. The Helena Huskies have now dropped 2 straight games as they fall to Moody this past week, 26-21, a week after losing to Spain Park, 28-26. 2 teams that are going to compete for state championships respectively in 6A and 5A, and both those losses by 5 points or less. And to me, it starts with the slow start offensively, especially this past week against Moody. Just come out of the gate a little bit flat. You let Moody jump up. And in typical Helena fashion, they give a fight in the second half. They're always in the game, no matter what the score is at halftime. They're going to fight back, and they showed that again against Moody. But this week, you go into another big-time matchup, a non-region game for the second week in a row, but you got to get up for this one. I know it's non-region action, but if you want a chance to get that 2 seed, which is very much in grasp right now with the schedule they have left in the second half, a game against Oxford is one that you've got to be able to pick up a win in. Just to get that confidence back going into that important stretch of the schedule. And Oxford won a tight game against Moody by 3 points earlier in the year. So this is a very similar team to what they just saw a week ago. So, Andrew, what do you look for in this matchup if Helena's going to be able to bounce back, get over that 2-game losing streak to get a win?
It's going to have to be a consistent offensive effort from the first whistle to the end. You've got to come out and be able to set the tempo on there. Not really take any time to grow into the game and just come out from that opening drive and be able to set the tone. And this team has the weapons to do it. Pretty solid running back duo they still have there with Jeremy Spratling and Dom Santiago, both still making plays I'm really encouraged by the progress that Nate Ferguson is making and the connection that he has with Torrey Ward. But this team needs to find ways to get into the end zone consistently, or at least get points. You got a good kicker in Austin Lewis who's able to turn some drives around that may have originally been 0 points. Now you get some 3 points in there as well. But just continue stacking those results and take it to an Oxford team that frankly is rolling right now, scoring 38.8 points per game and allowing just 24.6. And I think the big difference here, you look at these two teams, Helena, you obviously have a couple of close losses in there, but Oxford, you've got some close wins in there as well. Get that 3-point win over Moody, a thrilling 1-point win last week against Mountain Brook. And then
the overtime, they score in overtime. Is that overtime or into regulation? Final minute and a half. They go on a drive. They score with a few seconds left. They go for 2, which you should do.
Right.
Saw Kyle Parmley talk about that. We've talked about it before. You go for 2 in that situation. And they did it, and they win that game 29-28, I believe. Yeah.
Yes.
And just an unbelievable game, and I wonder how that carries into this week too. Yeah.
Yeah, especially with Mountain Brook being a top 10 team. That's a huge win within region play for you. I think that sets the tone for them, and they're going to come into this matchup really focused and motivated to see Helena out. But I think at the end of the day, both of these teams will give a fantastic battle out through the end. And I think it will be close down at the end. But it's Oxford's experience within close game situations and turning those into wins that I think is going to have them on the winning end of the column this time. But Helena, obviously a really good football team. Even if they drop to below 500 this week, they still have some really good opportunities to get back that momentum and get into the playoff picture.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. I don't really have to say much after that because that's my exact thought. I mean, you look at this is a game that I think is going to come down to who's played better in those tight contests. And Helena had their chances against Spain Park, ultimately couldn't pull that off or close it. Same against Moody last week. Had their chances late to pull off that comeback and couldn't get it finished off. I very much think they can. I think they're very capable of doing that. But when you're looking at predicting the game, you got to base it on something. I think this is going to be a very good football game. You look on paper and you see an undefeated Oxford team that's played as well as they have offensively this season, but they've also been susceptible to giving up some points at 24.6 a game. I think you're going to see Helena come out, have some success offensively, but to me, what you said earlier, a fast start and whistle to whistle. They've got to, from opening kick to the very end, they've got to play with the same energy that they've been coming out of the halftime breaks with recently. If they can do that, they're going to have a chance to win this game. If they can't, then they're going to be in comeback mode to start the second half, and yes, they'll probably have a chance to still win it, but if you start fast, you really have a good chance to win a football game like this one. You look at what Oxford has done so far this season, Central Carrollton out of Georgia, Moody, Shades Valley, Pinson Valley, and Mountain Brook, all their wins. There's been some tight battles in that span. I think this also going to be a tight battle. But Helena, even if you don't win, just getting that confidence of starting fast, showing that offensive success, then you've got Ben Russell, Pelham, Chelsea, and Calera all left on the schedule. So a big close to try to chase down that 2 seed in the region, possibly still an outside chance at a region championship if things shake out the right way as well. So opportunities ahead, and if you want to compete for one of those top 2 spots in home field in the playoffs in that first round, it starts this week against Oxford. Ultimately, I do think Oxford's experience in those close games, though, gives them a little bit of an edge in that matchup. Should be a lot of entertainment in that game, though. It's a lot of quality athletes, so make sure you are prepared for an exciting one there if you're a Helena fan. As the Briarwood Lions prepare to take on Leeds in an undefeated battle, I can tell you who's undefeated in customer service, and that's 3D Air Services. Make sure that you give them a call for any of your HVAC needs as we transition seasons from this hot summer fall day that we've got today shooting this show of 90-plus degrees. Get that air condition tuned up if you need to late in the season to be prepared for next spring, but also get that heater ready for the colder days ahead as we head toward fall and winter. 3D Air Service is going to take care of all of your needs. Since 2005, they've called Shelby County home, and they're more than just your trusted HVAC company. They're your neighbors, friends, and supporters. They're proud supporters of the Briarwood Lions and the Shelby County High School football show. And they believe in the power of teamwork, dedication, and community spirit, which they're going to take with them to every job that they do. 3D Air Services, your trusted neighbor, keeping Shelby County comfortable one business and home at a time. Give them a call, 205-664-3501, 205-664-3501, 3dairservices.com. Jay Carr and his certified team going to take care of all your needs, no matter the time of season. Another week of heartbreak for the Briarwood Lions as they fall to 0-5, and now they get a matchup with 5-0 Leeds this Friday night, a game in which these two teams have been pretty consistent. They've been about as consistent as it comes with what their stats look like and what they've looked like overall as teams this year. Briarwood sitting at 0-5, averaging 14 points a game, giving up 25.8 points per game, and those averages about spot on. That's about what you're going to get offensively and about what the defense is going to give up every game. Leeds 5-0, averaging 39.2 points per game, giving up 16 points per game, and that's about spot on with what you're going to get from Leeds. And so when you look at this matchup, it's a big opportunity for Briarwood to try to flip those numbers and make a statement that they're still a team that's fighting for something this year, still an outside chance, obviously, at a playoff spot as they go into the second half of the season with maybe a little bit of an easier slate ahead. So I still expect that they can turn it around and get into the postseason. But to do so, you're going to have to grow some confidence against a really, really good Leeds Green Wave team.
Absolutely. This Leeds team is number 4 in Class 5A and is probably going to end up challenging for one of those top spots within Class 5A when it's all said and done. And like you said, really coming in hot on both ends of the ball, giving up just over 2 touchdowns a game on that defensive front. And they've scored 42 points in 4 of their 5 games this season. That's bad news for a Briarwood team that has really struggled to get out of bed so far. Continuing kind of the theme of the show of these teams really needing to come out of the gate strong, this team absolutely within the past couple of weeks has not really had that good of an offensive effort in the first half and has needed to make it up in the second half, especially with defense, getting some points off of turnovers in there as well has really kept them in this game. But you need some offensive firepower to compete in these games. And quite frankly, Briarwood doesn't really have that right now. So I do expect Leeds to be able to pick up this win. But Briarwood can use this game still to really generate a little bit of momentum for that back end of the season. And if they want to do that, they're going to have to clean up some of the mistakes like turnovers and penalties that really hurt them in games like last week. 8 total penalties for 56 yards last week and a really bad first half penalty-wise. And just those turnovers flipping the field for them, not something that you want if you're a Lions fan.
Yeah, I look at this matchup, and it's all about Leeds' defense. A defense that's given up 20-19, 14, 14, and 13 in their 5 wins. So 20 or less in all 5. They've given 14 or less, given up 14 or less in the last 3 games. When you're taking on a Briarwood offense that's struggled so far this season, scoring 14 a game, and in the last 4, literally 14 or less in all 4 of those games, that Leeds defense, to me, is what makes the difference. I think that ultimately, I don't know about you, Andrew, but I think ultimately it's that side of the ball for Leeds that's going to get this one done.
Absolutely. When you have a good defense going up against an offense that's struggling, it's usually pretty mathematic here. I do think that Leeds is going to come out and set the tone up there early and really walk away with this win.
I will say, I think this is going to be a very sneaky good game. Briarwood is a team that's been right in these games the last few weeks. They just hadn't been able to have the offensive production, but their defense is back to what we expect at Briarwood. It's a Briarwood defense right now. They've played well enough to win football games. It's the offense that hasn't. I think you could see the defense step up, get a couple of turnovers, make some big-time plays, and keep them in this game. They could win this game. I would not be surprised if Briarwood is able to sneak this one out. I think it's going to be a very good football game, but right now you look at it, and you look at what Leeds does well and what Briarwood struggles with, I think that's the difference. That defense for Leeds is just too powerful. They've got a lot of athletes on that football team. Ultimately, Briarwood's defense also very physical, a lot of size on that side of the football. They're going to keep it close, but they're just not going to be able to find enough offensively to be able to pick up the win. Need to see some progression there on that side of the ball for Briarwood. If they do enough on that side of the ball to win this one, this is a team that can turn the page and will get into the playoffs. That's all they need to do. So a lot of opportunity for the Lions, but right now I need to see them prove it on that offensive side of the football. They continue to roll along. The Shelby County Wildcats now sit at 5-0 on the season, playing incredible football right now, and it starts with the run game, the offense as a whole playing well this season, and defensively playing well and consistently so far this season. But this week against St. Clair County, I think one of those matchups that could be a good, especially non-region matchup, could be a game that maybe is going to be a little bit closer than the records indicate for these two teams. St. Clair County sitting at 1-3 right now on the season. Shelby County sitting at 5-0. Both beat Jemison in very similar fashion, similar scores, 44-8 for St. Clair County, 42-6 for Shelby County. So those two against a similar opponent looked very similar. And you also have a team in St. Clair that's played a pretty difficult schedule to this point. So to me, Andrew, I think this lines up to be a little bit better than the records indicate.
Absolutely, especially when you look at the fact that those losses are to Montgomery Catholic, which is one of the best teams in the classification, Moody, one of the best teams in the classification, and Center Point, which is a team that's kind of flirting with that top 10 spot as well. That's a really difficult start to the season. And obviously, you look at it initially and you're like, that only win is against Jemison, a team that we saw Shelby County dominate. And you think it's pretty straightforward for them. But I could definitely see St. Clair County rising to that level of Shelby County. But I cannot say enough good things about this Wildcats team after watching them in person last week. That offensive line is absolutely blocking beautiful holes for Anthony Palmieri, and he's just taking advantage. It's really straightforward what they're doing, but they do it really well. Just big explosive plays out of the backfield. Even if they're not able to get it every single play, they're able to just come out and attack you. And once they hit that big play, good luck. You are not catching Anthony Palmieri once he gets to the second level. All the yards last week, again, with the run game, and that defense came up huge in spots. I really do think that this defense can be elite when possible. Sending these guys backwards in the backfield with some really big hits in the backfield. Andres McGinnis had a great game in the pass coverage for them against a Northside offense that I saw do some really good things earlier in the season. It was a good win against a good team, but you're also going to need to clean up some of those things that we saw on the defensive end last week. An inability to get off the field, late downs late in the game, just giving up penalties, giving up big plays, just keeping that door open for Northside. And I think that's going to be what's dangerous down the stretch. This team obviously has a big game next week against Demopolis that could decide the region title. Against that team, you're going to need to be clean and focused for all of the minutes in that one. But here, you've just got to keep your focus here, continue stacking results, and just play your best brand of football. And I think ultimately, at the end of the day, if they do that, considering what I saw against a really strong Northside defensive line last week, I think this team will come out and set the tone and really be able to get the win this week.
I think you look at just the confidence coming into this game. I know they've played a difficult schedule, but St. Clair County losing 3 in a row since that opening win to start the year, I think it's going to have an impact on this one. I think Shelby County comes in extremely confident, and last week is what gives me the most hope. That was a very challenging opponent that they were taking on, and they make the play. They could have won that game a little bit bigger.
Absolutely.
Northside made a little bit of a spirited effort late to make it look even closer than it was. I just think this team's clicking right now. They're playing so well. The only thing that can really stop them in a game like this is looking past this week. We know what's ahead the week after this, and that's Demopolis. That likely, to me, that's for the region championship. The winner of that game is going to win the region championship this year. So you don't want to get caught looking ahead, but 2, you don't want to lose the momentum going into arguably your biggest game of the season. So this is an important week for them to continue to build and carry that confidence a week further into that Demopolis matchup. So do what you do well, which is run the football heavily. Anthony Palmieri has been unbelievable the last few weeks. I expect him to continue to do the same. The offensive line has been incredible. I expect them to continue to do the same, but it's defensively and the consistency they've had there. Little bit of a setback last week, but that was against a really good team. I think the defense is what can make the difference and allow the offense now to build a lead. Whereas in the past, you had to rely on them just to give you a chance to score points. Now you've got a defense that can allow you patience and time to build a lead because you know that offense is going to eventually get it right. So if that defense comes to play, I think you're going to see Shelby County walk away with another win, improve to 6-0 on the season, which would just be unbelievable. This team's exceeded our expectations. Zeb Ellison has done an incredible job, and the buy-in from the players has been remarkable. It'll be interesting to see. I hope they can win this one and set up a very big matchup the week after. Regardless, going to be a big matchup as that's a region game. This is a non-region game. I still think that determines the region champion, but obviously want to go into that one with some confidence, and I think we both agree that we're going to see Shelby County do that if they can continue to do what they've done so far this season. As the Montevallo Bulldogs prepare for a home game this Friday night, I want to tell you about proud sponsors of the Bulldogs and the Shelby County High School football show, and that's Montevallo Main Street, obviously right there in downtown Montevallo. Make sure you visit them before the game, after the game, Saturday morning, all the great businesses that they have right there on Main Street. Check them out and support them, local business owners that are trying to make a living, but also supporting us and supporting your athletes and your schools right there in your community. They do a great job highlighting a bunch of different businesses and supporting the community as well, and put on a ton of great events throughout the year. Make sure you check them out. Visit them on Facebook, online, Montevallo Main Street, and learn everything there is to know right there in downtown Montevallo. The Montevallo Bulldogs coming off of an important and much-needed bye week as they've lost a few consecutive games since that strong start. Even those first two games, I know they lose game 2, but defensively looked good in that game as well. They win their opener, but now struggling right now, coming into a matchup against John Carroll, a 1-4 John Carroll team, though, and this feels like it's a get-right game for him. It's a great opportunity. One of these teams is going to walk away with some momentum, with some confidence, and build for the future with what they've got the rest of the season. But these are two very, very similar teams that need it right now because we've seen the struggles to this point in the season. Both struggling to score points, 13.6 for John Carroll, 15 for Montevallo. Both playing pretty good defensively and very similar, 25.6 that John Carroll's giving up a game, 25.8 that Montevallo's giving up a game. So to me, Andrew, this one could go either way.
Absolutely. When I was coming into the season looking at the schedule, I thought this was going to be one of the closer games in our non-region matchups this season, and I still believe that, even though both of these teams have struggled so far. Those numbers that you just mentioned, spot on reason why I think this game will be close down the wire, and both these teams face some difficult tests in those losses. Montevallo lost to Northside and Demopolis, arguably two of the top 3 teams within that region. You'll get Shelby County in a few weeks as well, so you'll need to get right before that game. And then John Carroll with a really difficult schedule, losing to Homewood, St. Michael, Ramsey, and then first place Carver Birmingham within that region. I do think the Bulldogs are going to be able to use that bye week to kind of get right in a sense, be able to figure out what's gone wrong in the past few weeks, and really decide how they want the rest of their season to look. This could be a crucial turning point for them in the season. Playoffs still alive despite the slow start. So it's really going to come out to how they want to come out and attack this one. But I think that this one is going to be a low-scoring game decided by a couple big plays. I think in the end, Rosario Conwell in that run game is going to be what's really crucial here. I think you'll wear down the Cavs enough to make some plays happen right there. But right now, I do need to see something from this Montevallo offense. I need to see more than that Ward to Cuts connection within the pass game to really give me some more confidence in picking this Montevallo offense. But this defense is playing so good right now that I almost lean to them in that matchup as well. So I think the Bulldogs are going to win on the back of that defense and that run game.
Yeah, this could be, I mean, we talked about it. It's going to be a really good game, I think, unless one of them just doesn't come out with any motivation at all or isn't prepared. But ultimately, you look at the game, and what I think makes the difference is the experience that Montevallo has. I know they've got a lot of new faces this year overall, but they've also got at key positions some good returning talent that has been good at times and been inconsistent at other times. I think this week they're going to find it. Coming off of a bye week, I think they're going to find that confidence a little bit. They're going to get back to what they do well, which is Rosario Conwell. He's got to have a big game in this one. And I think he's going up against a John Carroll team that lost a ton of playmakers from last year. I think that's the ultimate difference, but I also think that defense is going to make some big-time plays in this one. I think they're going to have a couple of turnovers going up against an inexperienced offense that John Carroll's had this year. And I think that at the end of the day is what makes the difference. But John Carroll's played some good football teams, and they'll be battle-tested and prepared for this matchup. But ultimately, when you look at it on paper, I mean, they're identical.
Right.
And it just comes down to that little bit of experience that I think can make the difference for Montevallo as they do have the opportunity to pick up that second win. Ultimately, I think they do and get some confidence going into the second leg of region play. The Vincent Yellow Jackets continue to play well, now 4-0 off another stellar defensive performance and a 29-6 win over Celigent this past week. And this is a team that's just doing things the right way right now. Offense is doing exactly what they need to. The defense continues to be dominant and a difference maker each and every week. And now they hit the road to take on Childersburg in what I think is their biggest game of the year. I think for one reason specifically, this is kind of that stretch of the season last year where they started to go the opposite direction. They lose to BB Comer, then they lose to Childersburg by 2. They ultimately only go 2-4 over those last 6 games in a similar situation, sitting at 4-0 at this point a year ago. So, Andrew, you look at this matchup, looks like Vincent's probably the better team, even with Childersburg being a 3A team. This feels like a good opportunity for Vincent to get some redemption.
Absolutely. And it's because the defense continues to roll. They've allowed just 6 combined points in their last 2 games to Lamar County and Sulligent, now averaging 7.5 points per game on that front. And you get a Childersburg team that's really struggling on the offense, scoring just 9.6 points per game and coming off a 12-0 shutout loss to a BB Comer team that Vincent was able to handle. But I think ultimately at the end of the day, it does come down to what you were saying. This, in theory, should be a good win for Vincent. However, we saw last year just how close this game could be, and this team is going to be motivated to want some revenge in this one for losing that one last year to a rival that's just down Highway 280 from you. I remember talking to Coach Weatherford after the BB Comer game and saying they needed a result. They needed something to bounce back after losing a lot of momentum against that Comer team, and they frankly didn't show it. And it started to show in subsequent games, and then the season started getting away from them through a combination of injuries and that lack of play as well. But I think this team is a lot more focused than last year, a lot more healthy than last year, and has some big playmakers on both sides of the ball. I think that makes a difference in the end. I think that Vincent, on the back of its defense, is able to come out and get a convincing win over Childersburg, get that momentum, get that revenge, and take that into a really big matchup next week against Tuscaloosa Academy.
Yep. And that's another time where you talk about don't look ahead. Another non-region game. The region games are what gets you into the playoffs and ultimately propels you forward. But don't get caught looking ahead. You got to take it 1 week at a time. Childersburg, a team that lost to BB Comer 12-0. That's a game that Vincent won this year. They got redemption once already. They beat BB Comer 21-18 earlier this year. Now they're looking for redemption once again this week against a Childersburg team they lost to 16-14 last year. And I, too, think it's the defense. The defense playing so well, taking on an offense that's scoring just 9.6 points per game, a team that's sitting at 1-4 and lacking that confidence this year. Vincent's going to be motivated. They want to get that revenge. They want to win this football game, and they want to keep their confidence high going into that big matchup. And I think they're going to do it because the defense has been so consistent, just like we've talked about throughout the show with other teams. That defense being consistent and giving you everything they have week in and week out allows your offense time to improve, but also time to make adjustments and score throughout the game. It takes a lot of that pressure off of them when they know what they're going to get on a weekly basis. And I think in this kind of game, that makes a difference because the Childersburg defense can play some good football and they're going to let their team hang around. But at the end of the day, they got to score points against a very good defense. I don't think they can do that or score enough at least to be able to win this football game. Vincent's balance and that dominance defensively, ultimately at the end of the day, helps the Yellow Jackets improve to 5-0 on the season. That takes us to the AISA and ACSC, and we've got the Evangel Lightning in another matchup on the road at Lighthouse, and you've got Coosa Valley hosting a different Evangel team, Evangel out of Montgomery, and a big matchup as well. Cornerstone continued to play well last week. They're on a bye this week as they remain undefeated. So, Andrew, these two games, you look at them, Coosa Valley against Evangel Montgomery, Coosa Valley coming off a 58-14 loss to Springwood last week. Evangel continues to roll. The offense starting to get going. Defense, a little bit of a setback, but it's 8-man play. You expect a little bit more of a higher scoring game, and they've still held their own the last couple of weeks. But they get 68-42 over Ezekiel last week in a rivalry game. Now they get a Lighthouse team sitting at 1-4, who also lost to Ezekiel 40-12 earlier in the season as well. So you look at these two games. What's the breakdown prediction there for Evangel and Coosa Valley?
I think both these games are pretty straightforward. Evangel, obviously a really big offensive production for them last week, crossing the 60-point threshold and really getting their best offensive performance of the season. And the defense actually kept it a little bit of a better game for Evangel than it read on the score sheet. It was a 68-28 lead in the third before the backup started letting in a little bit for a 68-42 win over Ezekiel, but Eli Black and Kemp Swords were both phenomenal in that game. I expect them to come out and continue to attack against a Lighthouse team that is worlds different from what we saw last year in ACSC play. They're only winning against Trinity Homeschool, and that shutout that they had brought their defensive average down to 41.6 points per game. So I expect a big offensive day coming in for the Lightning. They come out and get another big win in ACSC play. And in Coosa Valley, they just couldn't handle a fast Springwood start. They're going to need to get out of the gate better at some point. And this could be a week where they try to do that, especially with Cornerstone looming. You know, in that big rivalry game, they're going to need to come out and play their best football of the season against quite possibly what could be another state championship season for Cornerstone, but you get an Evangel Montgomery team that's scoring 48.4 points per game with a 3-2 record. I think at the end of the day, that's going to be too much for the Rebels to handle. They might get a little bit of momentum late, like we saw last week against Springwood, but I think it'll be too much, too fast for them, and I like Evangel Montgomery in that one.
Yeah, Evangel Montgomery winning 3 of the last 4. They got that confidence. Coosa Valley just struggling from a consistency standpoint. This could be their next best chance so far to put up some points, and I do think they're going to be able to do that. But at the end of the day, Evangel Montgomery, the better team in that situation. The Evangel Lightning hitting the road to take on Lighthouse. Just what we've seen consistently throughout the season. The defense has done what it needs to do. The offense now coming along. I expect them to have a big day on both sides of the ball yet again. I think we see Evangel out of Alabaster walk away with that win as well and continue to roll throughout ACSC play. So that brings us to our SCR Stars of the Week segment, proudly presented by Bertoloni's right there in Calera, another star right here in Shelby County each and every week of the high school football season and beyond. Bertoloni's is your go-to for authentic Italian cuisine, right off of I-65 there in Calera, easy to get to, easy to get out of, very centrally located, and they've got everything you could want. Their delicious pizzas are unbelievable. They've got so many different options there. You can customize them as well. You look at their traditional dishes, you look at spaghetti, you look at chicken parmesan, lasagna, all of it to die for. It's going to have your mouth watering if you head to their website, bertolonis.com, and look at all the incredible stuff that they have to offer, the different pastas, the different dishes that they're going to offer you from that standpoint. But their cakes also to die for. Some of the best cakes that you can get right there at Bertoloni's. Their strawberry is what they're known for, but they've got seasonal flavors. They've got so many other different options that are going to be unique to them and something that you can custom order. You can get it by the slice or you can get it whole as well for a birthday celebration or whatever it may be. But they're going to take care of you. Everything right there. Sonia Bertoloni and her team at Bertoloni's in Calera. They're going to get you everything you need throughout this football season and beyond. You can give them a call to place a to-go order, 205-664-8780, 205-664-8780. They've also got that brand new website with online ordering at bertolonis.com. They've got those family meals too, and if you're looking for an easy way to feed the family throughout the week during a busy time of year, going to and from practice and everything like that, make sure you give them a call. Visit their website, bertolonis.com, and they're going to take care of you with all of your needs to feed your family throughout a busy stretch of the fall sports season. So, Andrew, that takes us to our stars. In addition to Bertoloni's, we've got 10 total stars that we're going to talk about this week. I'm going to jump over to you. I know you've got some big performances that you want to talk about.
Yeah, we both have big performances. This is a great week on both sides of the ball for everybody. So big congratulations to everybody who was named this week. We're going to start with the stat line that I've been saying ad nauseum on Twitter since Friday night, and it's Anthony Palmieri's from Shelby County. 36 carries for 426 yards and 4 touchdowns. It's still unbelievable, but when you look at it on the field, it was a really good performance from him. Not only tallying the rock in the hard yardage situations, but being able to charge forward through some really good blocking. That offensive line is absolutely the reason why he's able to do a lot of the things that he's doing, but he has so much speed on him. Once he gets through that line, he's basically gone for 10, 20, 30 yards down the field. So big props to him. He's a very big reason why the Shelby County team is still undefeated heading into the midway point in the season. And then a couple of really good duos that I've got on the offensive side as well, starting with the Spain Park Jaguars. They had a huge offensive showing against Benjamin Russell, and the two big reasons for that, Brock Bradley over at the quarterback position, 10 for 18 for 232 yards and 2 touchdowns, and taking up all but 30 of those yards was Corey Barber. They've been an absolutely electric combination this season, have absolutely dominated with that deep ball, and it once again showed 5 receptions for 202 yards and 3 touchdowns. Just about every one of their connections last week was for a score or a big play. If they keep that going throughout down the stretch, this is going to be a dangerous duo to watch in the playoffs for sure. And I want to hit 8-man play as well, because Evangel had a season-best performance on the offensive end, and Kemp Swords was incredibly efficient in the air, 12 for 15 for 212 yards and 5 passing touchdowns. You've also got to remember, they've got a shorter field in 8-man, so that 212 looks a lot better in that as well. And then 2 rushing touchdowns as well for 7 total touchdowns for Kemp Swords. He won 8-man Extreme Player of the Week for the nation last week. I expect he's probably going to win it again this week as well, so big props to him. And then on the ground, Eli Black absolutely dominating there as well. 5 carries for 125 yards and 3 touchdowns. Just like Barber and Bradley in the air, just about every time Eli Black touched the ball, it was for a big rushing play and possibly a score as well. So the Lightning are rolling. That's an absolutely big performance for them. Curious to see who your 5 stars are.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the fact that we've got 10 this week is should say it all.
Right.
I mean, it was tough to narrow it down with the performances we had. Obviously, with what Palmieri did, that's one of the best performances you're going to get in the state this week. But you had a couple of others that are very similar performances against some high premier defenses as well, or premier teams in high classifications. And we're going to start on the defensive side of the ball with 2 team efforts defensively. Start with Vincent. Forced 4 turnovers in that game. That defense just continues to be a difference maker. I've hampered on it the entire show that the defense giving the offense time to make plays or putting your offense in better positions can make all the difference in the world. And that's what Vincent's defense has done throughout the season. But forcing 4 turnovers is obviously going to do that. And another defense that did that, the Thompson Warriors, and what they were able to do last week as well. Anquan Fagans, Jared Smith, and Micah Fleming, all with defensive touchdowns for the Thompson Warriors. Look at Fleming and Smith with pick sixes. Look at what Anquan Fagans was able to do, stripping the ball, recovering it, returning it basically 95 yards for the touchdown. Those plays were difference makers, especially with what you got from Fagans and Jared Smith. And Anquan Fagans, another interception in addition to his fumble recovery for a touchdown that led to the go-ahead touchdown there to start the second half. That's what put them on top in that game, 21-17. Then as Vestavia's coming down to take the lead back inside the 10-yard line, that's when he stripped the ball and ran it all the way back. And that just completely flipped the momentum in that game and made the difference before Micah Fleming capped it off with that final touchdown of the night with a pick six. And the defense won that game. Far and none, they won that game by far. So incredible showing from them as well as Vincent defensively. Offensively, we look at the Oak Mountain Eagles, Marty Myricks and Willowdale back to their old tricks and what they were able to do on that side of the ball. 5 touchdowns, 267 yards on the ground for Marty Myricks there at Oak Mountain as they're able to pick up a big win to bounce back from the 2 straight losses that they had. So gets them a little bit of confidence as well. And Willowdale, not the biggest night passing the ball. He had 74 yards passing, but 22 carries for 178 yards. Look, you know what you're going to get when you face this team, and they're still able to do it. Right. Both those guys going for over 170 in that game. Unbelievable from what we saw from them. And then Chase Strasner, very similar situation at Chelsea. You know he's going to get the ball, and he's going to run hard and heavy. And he had 34 carries for 181 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game against Calera to be able to lift them to the victory. A balanced effort overall on the offensive side, but he continues to be that difference maker for the Chelsea Hornets so far this season. So just incredible. I mean, just the rushing attack that we saw alone this week. 426 from Palmieri, 267 from Myricks, 178 from Willowdale, and 181 from Chase Strasner. It's just unbelievable to see those kind of numbers from so many in such a confined area right here in Shelby County. So congrats to each of you on your SCR Star this week. I mean, just unbelievable performance by all of you. And going into a big week this week with some non-region games, I expect many of them to step up again. But down the stretch of the season, probably going to hear some of these same names and maybe a new name or two as we name our SCR Stars of the Week each week. That brings us to the end of this week's Shelby County High School football show. An exciting week ahead with 10 total matchups, a non-region week. But I think these are going to be some of the best games we get all season with what you've got on tap. You look at some of these tight performances, but even teams that seem to be favored or the favorite on paper, I think going to end up in some closer games than we may expect. So going to take everything that all these teams have this week. Andrew, I ask for it every week. What's your bold prediction as we go in to this midway week of the high school football season?
Well, for at least one of these matchups, I'm going to go up against what you just said right there. I think that Spain Park wins by at least 2 scores over James Clemens. I think they're going to have another standout night on both ends of the field and really take advantage of a James Clemens team that hasn't really been that battle tested to this point. I think they come out, grab a statement win on the road up north there at James Clemens and really set the tone for a key part of region play coming up.
Yeah, I mean, these are called bold for a reason. And so, when I look at the slate ahead, there's a lot of games that could go either way. You look at Thompson Clay, defenses could make that game go either way. If Chelsea doesn't come focused, that game could go the wrong direction as well. Spain Park, James Clemens, 2 undefeated teams. Helena, Oxford, a game that should be very, very close there as well. And then I really do think the whole schedule has games that could go either way. But I look at 2 in particular. I look at Helena, Oxford, and I look at Briarwood, Leeds. And both of those games, although I may have picked it to go the other way, bold prediction for a reason. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if either of those teams are able to come out and pick up a win this week. I'm going to say that the winless Briarwood Lions, bold prediction, take down undefeated Leeds. And I grew up in Leeds, so hopefully the old Leeds folks there don't get too mad at me there. But excited to see them in the Green Wave and what they're about this year. But that defense from Briarwood, I think, can keep this a close enough game to where you could say that they could have a chance to pick up the win. Ultimately, my prediction is that Leeds wins, but the bold side of me wants to say that Briarwood can walk away and flip the script there. Winless to undefeated, win the game as the winless team so far this season. So it's going to be a lot of fun regardless. That one, I'll be out at that one on Friday night, catching those 2 teams in action. Andrew going to be right here at Thompson High School for our game of the week as they take on Clay every game this week. I mean, I was excited last week. I got your excitement on the pregame show. This week, I don't know. It's just amping me up a little bit for some reason. Being a non-region week, we get to see some unique matchups, and I think it's going to end up being one of those more thrilling when we look back on it weeks with a lot of close games. So make sure you get out, support your team this week. The hurricane that's supposed to be coming through, Hurricane Helene, should be out of the way before Friday night. Knock on wood, fingers crossed, anything you can do there. But hopefully we have some good weather for us on Friday night to be a beautiful night. Should be cooled down. We're going to have a great night of high school football action. Until then, that's going to do it for the Shelby County High School Football Show. Alongside Andrew Simonson, I am Alec Etheridge, and we'll see you on Friday night.